Hello, everybody, and welcome to the new episode of the Creative Insider. In this episode, I'm having a chat with Valentina Baruffo. She's an Italian photographer, journalist, and 3D artist. She's educated also as architect. But what is amazing about her, she made a book recently. She published her first book called Quarantena, which is the Italian word for quarantine, and she combined images made in 3D CGI of her thoughts and emotions during the quarantine, during the lockdown, combined with her daily diary. So what we are going to do is go through the path of her life, how she started, how she got into journalism, photography, how she became a 3D artist. She has worked for some of the most important firms in that industry. And yeah, I hope you enjoy the talk. And before we start, I'm going to ask you to support TCI Podcast because the podcast is for free. And the only way you can make it better and support it is just by taking yourself 10 seconds to go on Instagram, type it at TCI Podcast, or going on LinkedIn, the Creative Insider Podcast page, or Facebook, the Creative Insider, also a page. This is the way that you can support us, and because the more we are, the better it is. And creatives who are coming on the podcast will have a bigger platform and their voice will be heard. Thank you very much and enjoy the story of Valentina Baruffo. To this new episode of the Creative Insider. And today I have, after some technical issues, finally managed to register to record with Valentina. Hi, Vale.
Hi everybody.
So, Vale, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, thank you. And first of all, thank you for your invitation. So my name is Valentina. I come from Italy. At the moment, I'm living in London, where I'm working as a 3D artist. I've been moving around in the last 3 years. Before coming to London, I was living in Budapest, where I was working as well as a 3D artist. And before that, I had the chance to live in Amsterdam and UK also.
So a very, very long journey.
Yeah.
For the audience, because they don't know that, I didn't know Valentina before the podcast. I found her on LinkedIn. So you are my first LinkedIn meet. And what I got impressed from was the fact that you have published a book, which after talking to you, it's a very, very special book. It's a very particular concept of a book, but we'll get to the book because we have to start from the beginning. So you are from Italy, from Rome, right?
From Rome, yeah.
And what I've also seen is like you have studied journalism and you have studied photography too. Yeah. So I want to start from the beginning. So when did you decide that you wanted to be a creative, or how do you define yourself? Because I've seen these 3 general topics in your CV, and so how would you define yourself and how you started to be interested in creativity?
Yeah, I would definitely define myself as a creative. I would say that when I finished my high school, I wasn't really sure of which kind of path I wanted to take after with university. And just during my last year, I had this idea of studying architecture. I got closer to the topics and to the artistic side of the faculty. And before that, I always had this idea of writing I had the dream of becoming a journalist. I think I got closer to architecture because at that time the idea of becoming a journalist in Italy, especially in Italy, was a little bit tricky, especially in finding a job after. So I started architecture, and during university, even if I really liked all the topics, because as what I think is that architecture is a kind of university that gives you the chance to touch so many different aspects. So I really liked it, but at the same time, I realized that I wasn't really so interested in designing the building itself. And during university, I decided to attend a photographic academy here in Rome. And that was maybe what gave me the chance to totally change my path and to get closer to the creative aspects of architecture. So I had a master in photography, and through this academy, I had the chance to work as a photo reporter. So basically, what I was doing was writing articles for a magazine, and taking pictures for this magazine, especially for events, for example, for cinema, for art. It was quite fun because thanks to this opportunity, for example, I managed to take pictures or to interview famous actors like, I don't know, Denzel Washington, that was like one of my favorite actors, and I had the chance to talk to him.
Oh, and that sounds cool. But so you started this. So you did a master in photography, but how did you manage to do, like, in the same time, architecture and photography? Was this photography class like a part-time, or how did you?
No, it was a little bit crazy because basically I was going to university in the morning, and then immediately after lunch I was going to these photography classes. And the funny part was that after the classes in the evening, I needed to go to the events, and after the events, I needed to prepare articles.
And when did you sleep?
Yeah, so that's the point. Like, my parents remember about this period of my life that, like, I wasn't sleeping at all. Like, I was going to sleep at 3 a.m. and waking up at 7 and going to university. I was never at home. But it was challenging, but it was amazing, and I think it opened so many doors to me. First of all, because even if at the beginning the idea was just to take pictures to these events, then I realized that I actually had the chance to write articles about these cultural events. And writing articles, I could basically, we have this path in Italy that you need to work with a magazine for 2 years before being able to register as a journalist. So I decided, I thought, okay, you know what? That's something that I always wanted to do. Why don't I do it? And then, so it was like 2 really tiring years of my life. But at the end, I graduated as a photographer in this academy, and I also registered myself as a journalist.
So and how did you get connected, like, to get these gigs as a photographer or photography reporter? How did you transition? Because this is also something that I always ask to my guests. So because I think it's very helpful for the listeners to understand if they want to do a similar path as yours. How did you find the way to get from being a student, let's say you're a photography student, into getting these gigs as a reporter?
So basically, when I think in many academies it works more or less the same. In the one that I that I went to. Basically, we had different teachers. One for nature photography, one for photo reportage, one for architecture photography or post-production. And in particular, the professor from photo reportage noticed that he told me that he really liked how I was writing articles. And there was a magazine that was basically owned by this academy. And he was the editor-in-chief of this magazine, and he basically proposed me, why don't you collaborate with our magazine, and let's see if maybe you realize that it's something that you really like to do, and maybe in the future you want to keep going on the journalism. And so I just started collaborating with them when this teacher opened an own magazine, in which was a magazine for a particular really historical, famous area in Rome, which is called Monteverde. And the project was going on, and he asked me to collaborate with this other magazine as well. So from one moment to the other one, I passed from being a student to working with him, going to, for example, to the theater, interviewing actors, taking pictures of the shows, organizing events. And thanks to this, for example, I had the chance to meet so many people and so many creative people. And it was just super inspiring for me. So,
and in the meanwhile, you kept studying architecture, and you graduated in architecture too.
Yeah, exactly. 1 year after. So at the end of 2016, I graduated in architecture.
Then you were a registered journalist that time too.
Yeah, exactly.
And is this academy a very famous academy for photography? Were there international students also at that academy, or was pretty local, let's say?
It's quite famous in Rome. It's called Euromar. But now they changed the name, actually 2 years ago. So it's not called like this anymore. But there were not international students. It was focused on photography, but also on makeup. So basically, it was quite nice actually, because they had the photography academy, and then they had the makeup. So basically, the students were taking books and pictures of the girls that were from the makeup academy, and the opposite, people from makeup academy were preparing the models for the photographers. So it was a really nice collaboration.
Okay, so it sounds very interesting. And so you, in 2016, you said you graduated architecture, and you had your photography background. And how did you realize that? When did you realize you were also into 3D art, CG art?
So basically, I would say that studying photography allowed me to get closer to post-production. Okay, so to the idea of communicating with an image, to the idea of post-producing an image, and this was the first step. After that, when I decided to work on my final thesis for university, I was really interested in historical restoration, and I decided to do my thesis on a really ancient abandoned convent monastery in a city close to Rome, which is called Tuscania. This monastery is it's huge. It has 3,000 square meters, and there were no documents about it. So I needed to do the architectural survey and to produce all the documents that actually today we have about it. And at one point, my professor was she told me, hey, why don't you also work on the communication of this building? Why don't we create a 3D model and then maybe a video? And because she knew that I was a photographer, so she really liked the pictures that I took in this place, and she wanted to use them somehow. And I said, okay, I have no idea where to start. I've never done a 3D model before. So let's see. And I found a 1 week course with a teacher that is quite famous here in Italy. He is called Angelo Ferretti. And this course was in Cinema 4D. So for 1 week, I went to his lessons, tried to learn as much as I could. And then I tried to make this 3D model, but obviously, like, it wasn't the best model ever. But working on it and also learning how to do video, a little bit of video editing, a little bit of animation to create this video, just made me realize that I really wanted to work with the communication of the project. And I realized that actually all my path, photography, journalism, architecture, visualization, all of these things were going together into communication. So yeah, that's how I realized.
But I think that also photography, because I have never followed a photography class, but I started taking pictures a couple of years ago as a passion. And nowadays you can self-teach you a lot of things just from researching on the web. And when you start taking pictures, you have also this, you develop this sort of taste for perspectives. So you start understanding where is the best, how to take a picture with a great composition, and what would give you emotions if you take a picture. So what would give emotions to who is watching at the picture. So I think that's something that for sure it's helpful to have as a knowledge if you wanna start into 3D art.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
you said you have followed this class of 1 week, and you have basically learned the basics. And how did you develop further on your 3D skills, or how did you I guess you completed your thesis by making this 3D and video, and from there further on, how did you find a job into the industry? Because I've seen you have worked for many leadership companies, leading companies in the industry, and you're still working in one of the leading companies in the industry. So how this transition happened from being a student passionate about it to transitioning into the professional world?
Yeah, basically after graduating, I went for a couple of months. I went to Cambridge because I needed to study English. I had this idea of trying to work abroad. Imagine, until the end of university, I've never traveled around. So that was my one of the first and surely the biggest travel I had abroad. So I went to Cambridge for 2 months, and I was studying English, and I was working on my portfolio. So I was going to this English school in the morning, and then in the afternoon I was studying 3D modeling and preparing some images.
And you were still studying the same. But by the way, for who is listening, we're not making any commercial to the softwares. It's just to give a knowledge about what are the softwares that are in the field. So you were which software were you studying to?
I was still studying Cinema 4D.
Okay, you were still in Cinema 4D. So, and did you study it by yourself, or you studied again? Did you follow a class, or?
No, I kept studying by myself. So I was watching tutorials, and the lessons that I had in Italy were really, really good. So they really gave me a good base. And basically, my portfolio at that time was mostly about interior images. I prepared, like, I stayed there for 2 months, and after that I came back to Rome, and I was still working on this portfolio, and including also obviously things from university, because at that time I knew I wanted to work with communication of the project, but I wasn't entirely sure how to proceed, with finding a job. So I was still having a portfolio that was including architectural projects. I spent in Rome 3 weeks, and then I was like, no, I really want to go back. So I went back to Cambridge, not as a student anymore. So I went there, and I started working in a cafe in the morning, and kept working on this portfolio. And after 2 months, my portfolio was ready. And I did something that at that time I was really shy about it. So I started going in person to every single architecture firm in Cambridge, taking my portfolio to them and asking if they wanted to have a chat with me. And most of them were not interested in hiring, but one of them was really nice. And this architect spent with me a couple of hours talking about my portfolio, and he was really impressed by the images, especially. And he told me, okay, good. It was really nice to meet you. I really like your enthusiasm. I will have to let you know, because I wasn't planning to hire anybody. And yet that was my last week in Cambridge. So I prepared all my things. I went back to Rome. And after 2 days, he called me back, and he told me that he wanted to offer me a job. And
so you repacked again, and from Rome you went back to Cambridge?
No, I didn't do that, because in the meantime, I kept sending portfolios also to other countries. And during the same week, I took a little bit of time to think about it. And during the same week, I got an offer for an internship in Amsterdam. And I decided that I wanted to go to Amsterdam. So I packed everything. So I spent, like few weeks in Rome, and then I packed everything again, and I went to Amsterdam. And I had this 3 months internship in Amsterdam, where in a small architecture firm, where I was basically working on images. But my skills were not good at all at that time, because I was still learning. So they put me on a project for a university in Saudi Arabia, and it was just a huge project, and I needed to do images, and I didn't know where to start, because until that time I just had like living room images or kitchen images. So it was a challenge, but it was really nice. And when I was there, also like couple of months after I arrived, 2 months to Amsterdam, a big company from Berlin, which is called Eve Images, called me for an interview. They were opening a new office in Budapest, and they were looking for people to basically start a new group there. And the interview went really, really well, and they offered me a job. So I packed everything, went back to Rome for a couple of weeks, and then I went to Budapest. And when I arrived...
So your life turned from not traveling around at all to barely staying at your hometown, back in Rome. I think it's very exciting, your story, because it kind of accelerated suddenly from this job in Cambridge to this whole opportunity to travel around Europe. What I try always also to ask to the guests, and to you also, I will be asking. You said you got this job or this internship opportunity in the Netherlands, and I'm curious where they paying you enough to survive on yourself, or you needed to get some support from family, or how?
No, I got the biggest support from my family, definitely in Amsterdam, for two reasons. The first one is that, yeah, the internship was had a really low pay, and Amsterdam is a really expensive city. So my family were supporting me, and they supported me also at the beginning when I was in Budapest, because the first 3 months, imagine when I arrived to Budapest, I didn't know how to use 3D Studio Max, which is another software. I would say that is the most used software.
Yeah, it's the most common for architectural visualization, I think.
I had no idea, like I never opened 3D Studio Max before that. And so I arrived there and they told me, look, that's not a problem, because we know you were working in Cinema 4D. What we liked about your portfolio was your composition skills, the design, the lighting. We're going to teach you everything about the software. And it was fun, because I had this idea that for at least 1 month they were going to teach me, right? But like the second day that I was there, they put me on a project already. So I literally spent like 1 week without sleeping during night, because I was super scared, because I didn't know where to put my hands. And I was just thinking, okay, they are going to fire me because I don't know what to do and I don't know how to do things. But I had
I think that's the first thought that you get every time you're in a new job, because on my first job, they told me the same thing. Don't worry, we're going to teach you. And then the second day, they asked me to build actual models of buildings, out of foam. And in Germany, it's the first time I saw all the gear to cut the foam and build models. So I was really, really bad. And and then after 2 days, I thought, okay, it at least was fun. I saw how an architectural firm looks like. I made a couple of models. I fucked up big time. It was fun.
Exactly. It was exactly the same.
Exactly. So you did this 1 week no sleep, and did you calm down afterwards? What happened?
I calmed down a little bit. I have to be honest. I had really great colleagues, and everybody was really helpful. I had 2 tutors there, and especially one that was Italian. He was Italian, so he is Italian. So I was asking, especially to him. And I was being so annoying. I decided to sit close to him, and I was asking questions every 3 seconds, literally. Like, I don't know, I was going on hundreds of questions during all the day. So I started sleeping again, because I started learning, and I was working for them for 7 months. And I feel that it was probably one of the most important working experiences for me, because I learned so much, and also because of the people that I had the chance to meet there.
How long did you stay there? Sorry?
7 months.
7 months. And you learned and you had experience, and after that, what happened?
So after that, what happened is that the only thing I wasn't really happy about was that basically I wasn't in charge only of interiors. So I couldn't work on the exteriors, and I couldn't work on post-production, which was a little bit of a limit for me. I really wanted to create an image from the beginning to the end.
So, just sorry to interrupt you, but you were modeling basically.
I was basically modeling, creating the design of the interiors, arriving until the rendering part, and then giving the render to someone for the post-production.
Okay, just to give an overview, how is generally can you explain how is generally the process of making, how does it look like the process of making an image or a project in your field? Like, you get an assignment from your boss which he got from a client, I guess.
Yeah.
And then how is organized the work?
So as far as I've seen in the three companies where I worked, basically we receive the project. Most of the time we receive a model from the client as well. And the first thing that we always do is starting experimenting, testing lightings, testing modes, cameras. And we create many different camera drafts, which are basically sketches. They need to communicate to the client just the feeling of the final image. When you send this draft to the client, then the client has to reply telling you which one is the one that he basically prefers. And that's the moment that you start detailing the model, adding design elements. I would say that as a 3D artist, you have the chance to give an important to have an important impact on the design process as well. And then the important thing is to have always a really good relation, like a really good communication with the client, so that everything is more or less clear, and the process can go on smoothly until the final image.
And do you have an influence on the clients? Because also, I work on the other side of your job. Let's say I am the architect that it's your client usually, and I've experienced very often that my bosses where they had a general idea how they wanted the image, but maybe that wasn't the best way to represent that project, or the best the best perspectives, the best views. Do you need to communicate a lot with them to convince them maybe to change something? Or usually when you work in these companies which are leaders in the field, you say, okay, who comes to you, they know that you are the best in the league.
Yeah, I would say that it really depends on the client. So sometimes I had the chance to work with some clients that just said, okay, just have fun, do more or less whatever you want. And that was the case that we produced really different images, not really common. This happens sometimes. Most of the time, the client has clear in mind what he wants, and sometimes it happens, unfortunately, that is not really what we would suggest.
Yeah, it's not happening very often also as an architect that your client comes and say design what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always just make it boxy, so I'm sure that you can build it very cheaply and quickly. And,
yeah, I would say that in 3 years it happened to me 2 or 3 times to have the chance to do an image like I wanted, and to have really a lot of fun with it, testing and experimenting.
To me happened I think once that said make something cool, and so you weren't happy to have this limit on your let's say tasks and skill you were developing, and so how did you move further on from Eve images or Eve images? What is pronounced?
Eve images. Yeah. What happened is that I started looking for another job, and I didn't have in my mind to stay in Budapest, actually. So I started looking around, and then I've seen that Brick Visual was looking for someone, and it was quite weird, because Brick Visual was basically the office is more or less 100 meters from the office of Eve Images in Budapest.
And for the people who don't know, Brick Visual is also one of the leaders in the 3D archiviz business.
Yeah.
It's if you want, you can check their website or the Instagram feed, and you will see some images which look extremely realistic, but those are not real pictures.
Yeah. So
How
yeah,
was how was the reaction of your boss when he saw you working in the
eh,
just 300 meters away from him?
oh my God, it was like basically we could look at each other from the balcony.
And they think that bitch.
No,
We told her everything. We were kind to her. She asked us 100,000 of questions, and now she left.
yeah, something like that. No, they were really nice because I kept a really good relationship with them, and I actually kept going out with them after work, or kept meeting them. I would say that the team from Eve Images, like, they became friends for me. So all the 2 years that I spent in Budapest, I kept seeing them.
Were they
Um,
were they from Budapest, or were they from where it was a very international office?
It was international. I would say a couple of them were from Hungary, and all the other people were from other places like Romania, Italy, Bulgaria, even Belarusia.
Okay.
I know after me there were some South American people as well. So yeah, it was really international.
I think I don't know why there is in general an archiviz there is this very very high presence of Eastern Europeans because also I think I have said that in another podcast with Federico Biancullo I was talking to that V-Ray, the company, it's a company that it's a render engine. It's a Bulgarian company. So a lot of people in Bulgaria get educated in 3D modeling and visualization, and so it's like an industry there. So I think this is a factor too.
Yeah.
And but was it, for example, because I work also in a very international company, and I noticed that sometimes it's cool. It's very cool to work in a very international environment, but sometimes you need also to start understanding the different cultures, because sometimes that is what leads to misunderstandings maybe. Did you have any experience like this with your international colleagues?
I would say that I was quite lucky about it. So we didn't really have any problem, especially I think in Eve, because we were spending so much time together. Imagine at the beginning we were just 4 people, and plus our tutors, and all of us just moved to Budapest, so we didn't know anybody, and because all of us were really anxious, we were staying at work until really late, and after work we were going for dinner together. So basically we were spending, I would say, 18 hours together every day.
So like a
And
family, like
yeah,
a new family.
I have a really nice memory. It was more or less after 3 or 4 months being in Budapest, I came back to Rome to visit my family. And when I was going back to Budapest on Sunday, one of them texted me and said, "Hey, we are organizing a dinner tonight because we know you're coming back quite late, so you're probably not gonna have something at home to eat or whatever. So just come to our place and we can eat together." And I just like text to my parents and said, "Oh my God, I have a small family in Budapest," because that was the feeling.
I think that a bit among expats it happens often, because for me it happened with I came in Frankfurt as Erasmus student and then I managed to stay. But I remember that we were a group of students from the University of Rome which came here, and after a while we became like our family, like our expat family, because you don't have a lot of people to rely on when you're abroad, so you need to rely on each other. And it creates this connection between people, which no matter how now we don't text on a daily basis or something like this, but every time we see each other, we talk to each other. It's very nice because you have this very strong memories about the
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
And
totally true.
to go a little also a part of the work and the creative side of the whole thing, because you have been in the UK, you've been in Amsterdam, you've been in Hungary, and you are Italian. Did you have any culture shock when you moved in these different countries? Something that you noticed from the locals or from from the environment there, which was a little surprising for you? You needed to get used to, because I've done also a whole podcast about moving abroad, because it looks so exciting when you talk about it, but there are also these downsides that you need to get used to new cultures, new behaviors. So was it something shocking for you in your experience?
I would say that, okay, for example, when I went to Amsterdam, I think everything for me was just great. I had the feeling that everybody was really friendly, maybe because all of them were speaking English, so I could communicate with them. I felt like I knew it wasn't going to be the place for me for a long time, but I felt a little bit home. I would say that the shock I really had it when I arrived to Budapest. Probably because I don't know. When I was looking for a job, I wasn't. I was looking in UK. I was looking in Italy a little bit, in Switzerland, because I had this idea of moving to Switzerland. I never looked for a job in Budapest, so it wasn't in my plan, and it happened for as a coincidence, just because this company from Berlin was looking was opening a new office. So I never considered the idea of moving to Budapest, and when I arrived there, I remember this like if it was yesterday. My parents came with me, so we left Rome by car. With all my things, clothes, everything, even with my bicycle coming from Cambridge with me. And we arrived to Budapest after 14 hours driving. We went to a bed and breakfast, and they told me, okay, just go to the supermarket to buy some plastic plates so we can have dinner. I went to this supermarket and I couldn't find them. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna ask. I found a girl to ask, and I said, sorry, where can I find the plastic plates? And she looked at me like in a really bad way, because she couldn't understand me. And that's where I realized that I was in a place where they were speaking a totally different language, and many people can't really speak English. So it's like the same in Italy. In Italy, it's not so common that people can speak English. So I was like, I took my phone and I was trying to look on internet for an image of plastic plate, and I couldn't because internet was not working. So I remember that I arrived home without plates. I sat down in the kitchen of this bed and breakfast, and I just started crying, saying that, oh my God, I don't want to be here. I want to go back home. This is terrible. I'm not gonna able to talk to people. And I would say that was the biggest shock I had.
And I think as Italians love to talk to each other and talk to people. So that's also something that's probably have been sad for you. I think for me it was I couldn't say where I live, because when I arrived in Frankfurt, first of all, I haven't. It was very hard for me to remember the names of the things, because it's a totally different language. So you when you speak English, you can kind of connect some words to Italian, but in German, I lived on a bus stop which is called Frauensfriedenskirche, which in another language means like a female-friendly church, but they joined the words all together. So I couldn't say where I live. They asked me, where do you live? And I said, I don't know. I know where it is, but I don't know how it's called.
I spent... sorry.
Yes?
No, this is fun, because it reminds me that I've had exactly the same experience. I spent like 1 year that when I was needing to take a taxi coming back from the airport or whatever, I needed to show the address on the phone, because my address was Wojciciliński Uca.
Okay, then even harder. But again, back to the money aspect. When you got a real deal job, like now, not anymore an internship, but a job, and especially in Budapest, where the money good enough to live there on your own, or for example, what I also was thinking that if you work in a Eastern European country, do they pay you enough as you were living in I don't know, in Germany, or it was lower, or I don't want to know
Um,
exact numbers, just something that explains the general situation.
in general, I feel like okay. When I arrived to Budapest, I had this few months learning, so my pay was really low. And I'll tell you what, I was like, the amount of salary that I was getting was exactly the same amount of money that I was spending for my rent. So my family was definitely helping me. On the other side, Budapest is quite cheap compared to Italy. Not as I was expecting. I was expecting even cheaper, but it's still like the rent, for example, is definitely cheaper than Italy. Um, so I had these first 3 months where it was I couldn't have done anything without my family support. But after that, my salary was increased, and I'm not really sure that the salary in Budapest was exactly the same of Berlin, but I would say that it was quite similar. But it was definitely enough to support myself, especially after when I went to Brick Visual, and I got promoted as a senior. Then I was totally fine. So my only problem with the salary was that when I was in Budapest, I had the chance to have a really good quality of life. I was living in a really nice apartment in the city center, going out, doing my things. The problem was when I was going abroad, and that's where I was feeling it. For example, once we went to with these colleagues from Eve, we went to Iceland, and basically we ended up eating sandwiches for 4 days because Iceland was so expensive, and with our Hungarian salary, it was not really easy to make it.
But I think that Iceland is in general very expensive for
Yeah.
people even coming from Germany, because for example, I live in Frankfurt, which is the second most expensive country in Germany. And so for me, it's the opposite. Like wherever I go, I mean, there are not a lot of places where I go and I say, "Oh my God, here's it's so expensive." But I remember we had this thing when I came here. I came from Italy
Hmm.
and from Rome too. And there were people coming from Denmark. So it was so funny because I was saying, damn, here you pay €3 a cappuccino. And they were like, well, damn, here is so cheap. So it was this South Europe and Northern Europe, which were clashing in the middle. But I remember, for example, when I went to London a couple of years ago, it was some months after Brexit. I mean, they said they're going to do the Brexit, and the pound was really low. And when we were drinking somewhere outside during a happy hour, I remember it was even cheaper than Frankfurt. And I was thinking,
Wow.
and the amount of money I had prepared for my holiday were overrated totally, because I have prepared some amount of money and I came back home and I was like, okay, I didn't spend anything that I
Well,
was
that's
thinking.
nice.
Yeah, so that's why I'm asking, because I always think, okay, it would be cool to work in such a firm, but are they located? I think this is also something that makes those firms so competitive, because in Hungary they don't pay you that much, so on an international market they can be more competitive.
Yeah, and also that's true. But as far as I've seen, for example, talking about the price of the images, I haven't seen a big difference from the prices that they have in Budapest compared to the prices that we have, for example, in London. So for them, it's really good because I was just talking to my boss few months ago about this topic, And for a company in UK, considering that salaries here are much higher, it's quite tricky to to compete with these companies from Eastern European, for example, that have really lower salaries, and they're still having a high price, maybe just a little bit lower, but if you see at the end, they are earning more because they are paying less. So,
But I think that that I'm very scared of this whole Corona pandemic, because I think that when companies will are getting more and more to understand that actually you can work do a home office. I'm afraid that it's going to happen that the salary market will crash, because more company will be like um, a lot of company will get smart and will hire people somewhere where they can pay them less, doing work for some countries where it's more expensive, and then this will create a chain reaction where more the other company to stay in the market, they will need to pay lower salaries to offer lower prices. And I hope that won't happen, but I think it might be something
yeah,
that will happen in the future.
it
And
may be.
so when you move to Brick, where you become senior visualizer, and you had different tasks, I guess. What were you doing there? More post production?
No, basically in Brick it works differently. So you have the chance to create your image from the beginning to the end. So you get an image from a project, and you start with camera draft. And from that moment, the image is yours, unless obviously there is some emergencies, or maybe you're not in the office and then they need to pass it to someone else. That was the first time for me that I approached exterior images. So Brick was again starting more or less from the scratch. Also because in Eve we were using Corona as a render engine, but in Brick they were using V-Ray. So I arrived there and I started again learning and making a lot of questions. And but I mean, Brick has so many employees. So the nice thing is that you meet so many people, and basically everybody is more skilled about something. So you always know, like, you always have the chance to ask to someone who knows something more than you, and that's a really good feeling, because you can grow together and you can keep learning from each other. So I grew faster and a lot. And after 1 year that I was there, I was promoted as a senior.
So how long did you stay at Brick Visuals?
1 year and a half. So
Oh,
basically, yeah, after during summer, I decided that it was 2 years that I was in Budapest, and at one point I realized that apart from obviously investing on my job, I also wanted to invest a little bit more on my private life, and I felt that Budapest was not really the place where I wanted to stay for a long time. So I decided that it was time for me to move, and I since I went to Cambridge, I always had UK in my heart. So I applied for some companies here in London, and in June 2019, I was invited for an interview with Pixel Flakes. They were so cool because they invited me to London. They paid the flight for me. They paid the hotel for me. They booked a 5 stars hotel, super cool in Shoreditch, and they took me for lunch. And basically, I came to London to meet there, and we were just having a really nice, friendly chat. I definitely fell in love with the environment and with the people. And as soon as I came back to Budapest and they sent me the offer, I said, yeah, sure, coming. And so I packed everything and I went back to Rome for 1 month, more or less, maybe a little bit less. And I had the chance to go to the mountains for 2 weeks to do some mountain bike, which was quite cool, even if I was scared of, I don't know, breaking some leg before starting the new job. But then in September, I was okay and I came to London.
So you moved to London after they had announced Brexit, right?
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, you can tell the people from Pixel Flakes that I think their name is really cool.
I will do.
And so you moved again to another country, back to London, and how a part of professionally, I think that after a few years experience now you haven't had so many challenges, I guess. I mean, you needed just to fit in the new working environment and setup, or did you have other challenges again that you needed to overcome when you moved to?
No, basically when I moved to London, I like to say that everything was easy, strangely, because probably after being in Budapest, where I needed to deal with the language, so with all the bureaucracy, for example, in another language, or for example, just to make you an example, I'm receiving an email from Hungary, which is about the taxes. They send you every year the resume, let's say. I can't understand anything. So and every time was like that, when I arrived to London, it was the opposite, because I arrived here, I could speak English, people were able to communicate with me as well, so everything was really easy. I was lucky enough to find a bedroom in a shared flat from when I was still in Rome, in a really particular area of London. Maybe I can tell you about it later. And in Pixel Flakes, everybody was really helpful. They basically they put me to work on a project immediately. I had some. It was a little bit difficult to get used to the new library, to the new workflow, because they really work heavily with Photoshop, which is something that I really like, but I wasn't used to. So I needed a bit of time to get used to the new environment as well. But I was helped, because around I had just really nice people. I always could just ask, and they were open to help.
I want to resume some terms for the audience which is not into the field of archiviz or architecture. When you talked about external images, that means images of buildings which are from the outside, so not interior, like not in a room. And then a render engine, it's a program, an add-on to the 3D program which creates the lights and the materials, because to make a picture you need light and material. And post-production is when an image comes out of this render engine who produced the image. You add some details or you tweak it even more on Photoshop. So this is how it generally works, so that people which are listening and they don't know much about it, they can learn. But to resume, to get into this field, so how much you basically learned the most of it by yourself and then by working, right? So you needed just to hustle a little bit in the beginning, get this a little underpaid jobs, which but gave you the time to practice. And this is, you didn't do like your first class was something very introductive and basic, which you don't use anymore because you use other softwares, from what I understood.
Yes, exactly. I would say that most of my experience was is due to the work environment. So most of the things that I know today, I learned them just doing them, actually. So facing the problems every day, and having to deal with them.
So I think the first part, when you were underpaid, it's a good investment, in term of time and money, because you're not maybe earning money, you're losing some money, because I mean you need the support of your family to survive, let's say. But yeah, it's something that you invest on yourself, and then now you're basically a complete 3D artist.
Yeah, but
And
that's what I thought at the beginning, was exactly that. Like, okay, instead of paying money for example, have a master or a course, or I have the chance to work and to learn working with them. Okay, the pay is not gonna be enough to support myself. But on the other side, if it wasn't like that, maybe I would have ended up having paying for a course. So in this way, at least I also had the chance to live on my own, to which is probably one of the biggest challenge actually of the that I faced in during the last few years. So to look after myself, in a different country, and the same time working, so being satisfied about the work and learning.
yeah, I think this transition, from living with your parents and living alone, it's a big deal in general in life. In my case, it happened in a very particular way, because I'm originally from Bulgaria,
Hmm.
and my mom needed to go back to work in Bulgaria when I was, I don't remember how old I was. I think I was starting high school. And my dad, he's a truck driver, so he travels a lot. So I kind of had a my transition was started very in a very early age. So when I actually moved alone, it wasn't a big change for me, because but I saw a lot of people which were for the first time out of home, and some of them went crazy because it was the first time they were in control, so they started partying every night, going out every night. So I think that it's a very particular moment in everyone's life. But the overview I wanted to give the audience is that also you have been also lucky, because your family wanted to support you and had the opportunity to support you, because when you if you don't have that chance, you need to be aware of that. So
Definitely.
don't go to Budapest
No.
because you maybe will need to hustle a little bit, maybe work two jobs, or maybe will live in a smaller flat or share a flat.
Yeah.
That's what I aim to learn from my guests, is to learn what is the process behind, how it looks like, what is the overview, so that if somebody wants to, because there are a lot of people who will listen and they will be super, I get that from also past episode, people are like, oh, this episode was so cool because I always wanted to do, I don't know, archiviz, and by hearing that story I'm now super pumped up and super inspired. And I think that we go through these topics just to explain what are the benefits and what are the downsides of every aspect. But
Definitely. When I started, when I decided to go abroad, I was really scared because I didn't know anything, and it would have been so nice to actually have a podcast like this to hear experiences from other people. So yeah, definitely.
yeah, that's the point, to have these stories which are, because there are so many people who underestimate their own story. I hear often from also guests that says, oh, why you want to talk to me, I'm not that special. I'm like, you think you're not special because it's your own story, but if somebody else listen to your story, they'll be like, oh my god, that sounds so cool and so crazy. And I think also your story so far is so cool, because you have been hustled a lot also while studying architecture and photography. In architecture in Rome, it's a very harsh faculty to study at, and it's I think it's very interesting. But let's move to the actual subject, which made me I'm very curious about your story, which is your book.
Yes,
When was released your book?
it was 1 week ago. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really excited about it.
So the book is in Italian, right?
Yes, I have this idea of translating it also because like my boyfriend who is English is asking me every day, when are you going to translate it? Because I want to read it. So I will have to do it.
And
For now, it's in Italian and it was published by an editor here in Italy.
what is the name of the editor? Let's make some commercial for
Yeah,
them.
the name is Sama Edizioni.
In the title of the book is Quarantena,
Quarantena.
which is the Italian name for quarantine, for
Exactly.
lockdown.
Yeah.
And tell me, what is the book about? What is the core idea?
So what happened is that the lockdown started. As I told you before, I'm living in a shared flat with it's a house, and we were 4 people at the beginning of the lockdown. We live in a really nice particular area of London, as I told you, because we are in the Jewish district. So basically, we are in all around. There are these. Have you seen the Netflix series which is called Unorthodox?
No, I haven't. But in which part of London is that? Is it central or is it?
It's North London, and the area is called Stamford Hill. And basically, they dress in a really unique way. When I arrived to London, I called my parents. It was a Saturday, and I told them, "Oh my God, there is a festival here because people are wearing like super nice costumes. They look like from another age." And then just on Monday, I realized that actually that's their way of dressing, because they wear like really big black hats and black clothes, and they have their own community with their own rules. So basically, I'm living there. We were 4 people at the beginning of the lockdown, and suddenly it was just me in alone, because the two of my flatmates left. They decided to spend the lockdown with their families, and the third one he's working for in a pharmacy, so he was never at home. He kept going to work every day. So I realized that I was going to spend a few months at home, totally alone, in another country, with my parents getting crazy from Italy, telling me every 2 seconds to go to Rome because the apocalypse was coming. And I was like, okay, I really need to find something to not get crazy. And I decided to start to do some images that could tell something about my quarantine. So every day I was doing an image, and I was putting myself into the images. And then after few days that I was doing this, I decided that I wanted to write down what I was feeling, because I had this idea that the lockdown changed my priorities a lot. It made me think about many things, and made me realize that something that I thought it was really important maybe wasn't that important anymore, and the opposite also, that something that I wasn't considering too much was actually becoming more important. And I realized that I didn't want to forget these things, because when we pass through really dramatic or important moments, we used to stop and to think and to make considerations. But when everything goes back to normality, most of the time we just forget, and we go back to our normal routine. And I didn't want that, because I felt that something was going to happen in my life after this lockdown. So I started writing a diary, and every day I was just writing down what I was doing, and my feelings and what was happening. And then I started writing down, for example, my dreams. If I was dreaming something that was scaring me or whatever. So the diary started to come out, and at one point when the lockdown ended, I read all of it again, and I was like, okay, maybe it could be interesting also for other people to read it. So I contact this editor, and I was so lucky that she said, I really like it, I want to publish it. So because it was related to the quarantine, we didn't want to waste too much time. So we from the time that we got in touch to the moment where it was published, it passed more or less 1 month maximum. And so it was really fast and a little bit shocking, but super exciting.
I think the story is very interesting, but what were you feeling during the quarantine? What when you reread your notes, your diary, what did you feel during the quarantine? Because I think that the human being is a very adaptive being actually, and it's for example, I think that I think the moment, because for example in Germany we never had a lockdown, but I was more connected to the Italian situation because my family is there, and they were in full lockdown, and I enforced myself like some lockdown on me, and just being 3 days in home without leaving the home was so hard. And what were you feeling? What did you feel in general?
Yeah, basically, first of all, I had the feeling of leaving the things twice, because I'll tell you this little small story. When the virus started to hit really strongly Italy, my parents started to be really worried about me. And they were calling me and telling me, Vale, the situation is really bad. You need to be careful. Buy masks, buy hand sanitizer, wash your hands continuously. And I remember I was telling them, you are exaggerating. In London, we don't have the virus. Everything is fine. I was even getting angry at them because they were scaring me somehow. And there was one day that my dad told me, okay, now you have to do to go to the supermarket and do shopping, buy a lot of food and put it away and just keep it there because the virus is arriving there and it's going to be really bad and you're not going to be able to go to the supermarket anymore. And I was angry on one side because I thought that was too much, but on the other side, luckily, I listened to him. Because like after 1 week, everything happened in London again as well. I remember that at the beginning I was feeling this really bad feeling on my stomach when I was going to the supermarket and seeing that the shelves were empty. And everything was a little bit messy, and people were rushing and running around to buy everything before the other ones, and it was like a little bit like being in one of those movies that about apocalypse, When the lockdown started, I was already in lockdown by myself because I started working from home, and since then I didn't go out. And the feeling was that at the beginning was I wasn't really realizing what was happening because, you are just staying inside. You are not going out at all. You are not even going out of the door. So outside is sunny. It's coming spring. It's super beautiful. And you are inside and you think, okay, everything is fine. Everything is beautiful. The sun is shining. But then when a few times it happened to me to go to some shop to buy, I don't know, milk or some fresh fruit, I was realizing that actually the situation was really bad. And I was scared about the virus. I was scared about my family being far away from each other for so long. I was more scared about them getting the virus than myself. And I was scared about the future. Basically, I would say that the most important feeling that I had during the lockdown was that I was really scared about the future. I had the feeling that my life was suddenly paused, and I didn't know how to go back to normality. I had the feeling that it's like it was pausing at the end of February, beginning of March, and when we arrived to May, I still had this feeling that these months they passed, but I didn't realize that they actually passed. I wrote something in the book. I had my 30th birthday during the quarantine, and I wrote. I have the feeling that I'm not really turning 30, so I'm gonna be so lucky that I'm gonna be 29 for another year, because I feel that this is not happening. So I felt that I was in a kind of in a bubble, and things were just happening around, but I wasn't really realizing them.
I think that the whole world felt that way, but I noticed something different, because in my case, um, for example, I was one of those people that in the beginning just wasn't scared at all. I wasn't scared at all at the virus, and my family wasn't scared either. And I think my family, they have lived the transition of communism to democracy, and in that time it was very crazy, because they have lived some moments like this one, in which there was no food, there was I don't know, electricity wasn't working constantly, because it was a country which was failing, was in bankruptcy. So they were way more calm about the situation. They were like, oh, whatever, we've seen something like this in the past. So I think that one of the factors that made it feel so much worse is that our generation, we have never experienced something very bad, where you're not in control, and where you don't need to. And I think that nowadays we have this unlimited access to information, where you could go all day long reading information about the virus, inform yourself, and also the media will push always news about one very young person that was super healthy, but he died because of the virus, and you get more scared, and it was a very, and in the same time, as you said, you look out, and then maybe it's a sunny day, and nobody is not.
Yes.
There are no explosion. There is no death around. And here in Germany, there was even no lockdown. We could go out, jog, walk. So it was a very weird thing. And now that the worst looks to be past for now, I think people are just back to how they were before, and it feels like the war went in a pause for a couple of months, and now we're living again. And these images you did, they are reflecting the emotions you were writing in your diary, right?
Yes. So in the book, some images are just showing me doing things, but in a, let's say, more fantastic way. I decided, for example, during the lockdown, at one point I needed to keep my mind a little bit busy, apart from working. So I decided to tame a squirrel, because, in London we have a lot of squirrels. And because I live in a house around, there are squirrels coming to the garden to look for food. So one morning I was like, okay, I really want to tame one of them. So I started putting some nuts outside for them every evening. Obviously, I couldn't really tame a squirrel, but there is one image in my book where this squirrel was tamed because of my nut. So some images are this kind of pictures, let's say, and there are some other images that are showing, as I said before, like some dreams that I had. There are some pictures as well, like photography of places where I've been, because at the end of the lockdown, I got a bicycle and I started cycling around and discovering that London has forest inside the city. So seeing so many places just cycling, and so there are some photos as well.
And how many pictures are in total your book?
Oh, you know that I'm not really sure. I think there are around 20 images, maybe, including pictures and images, I would say.
And 20 stories.
Not stories, it's more like showing moments of my quarantine. So basically the book covers 2 months of lockdown where I was writing almost every day. And in some particular cases, I was adding images.
And how did it work, the actual making of the book? Because clearly you have a very good knowledge about, let's say, graphics. So did you took part in the putting together the book actually, and from the graphical side too?
It was really nice because actually I didn't have any idea of how to present a book to an editor, how to arrive to the final phase. So what I sent them was both a Word file, so just the text, and then because I knew how to work in InDesign, when I was working as a journalist, I was also in charge of the design part of the magazine. So I learned how to use InDesign at that time. And it came back because apart from sending them the text, I decided to send them also a PDF with the layout that I was thinking for my book. For example, the book has a square format, which is quite unique, I would say, for a textbook. But it was related. It was because of the images. So I needed to have a square layout. So I sent them also the PDF, and when they work on the final layout, they followed the one that I chose at the beginning.
Okay, and how did you find a publisher, and how did you have some people that you were still in touch from your journalist years, or?
No, that's a really nice coincidence. So basically, when I was at primary school, I was in Naples, and I had a teacher that was really she really liked me. So we kept in touch for years and years. She moved to Rome after a few years. Like I stayed in Naples for 4 or 5 years. I moved to Rome with my parents when I was 7 years old, and she moved to Rome immediately after. And so because she was in Rome, we kept being in touch. And what happened is that like she a few years ago she became a writer. So she's actually writing books, and she found this editor. And when I finished my book, I got in touch with her, and I was like, hey, could you give me some advices how to get in touch with an editor, or how to do if you want to try to publish your book. And she told me, yeah, definitely. Why don't you talk to my editor? Maybe they could be interested. And so she gave me the details, and then I got in touch with them, and yeah, that's how this happened.
And did you need to do a contract with them, or
Yes.
so you have a
Yes.
contract? How does a contract with an editor looks like? Do you get a percentage per sold copy, or?
Yes, you get so basically when they print the copies, so that is something that happened a few days ago. They give you 5 copies that you are free to give as a gift to people. So obviously, like my parents and my relatives took all of them. And then you can either buy from them some copies that you want to sell, or otherwise they sell them through their website. And in September, the book is gonna be also on the website of Feltrinelli, Mondadori, which are famous bookstore here in Italy. And when they sell copies, you get a percentage, which is the 8%. So yeah, it's not that much, but not at the moment. Like at the end of the year, they see how it went, and then they give you what
What
is.
they earned, like
Yeah.
8% of the, but the books you can buy on your own, you buy them on full price, or you buy them for a little lower money, or how?
No, the ones that I buy them for with a really good discount, so basically half of the price.
Okay, so you can basically resell part, like some, but do you have a limited amount of books you can buy with discount, or no?
No, I don't. So whenever I want, now or next year or in the years after, like I can just decide to buy more copies with this discount.
Okay, and do you know how do they decide how many copies to print in the beginning, or they just print a definite amount of copies and then when they sell them they print more?
I
How
would
it
say
works?
I'm not really sure about the number that they printed. I actually arrived to Rome yesterday, and I'm meeting them in the week to take my copies and to see how it's going. But I'm sure that they printed, because they sent me pictures as soon as they got the copies, and I'm sure they printed a limited amount, and then as soon as they get orders from their website, then they're gonna print more.
And do you know if the book's gonna be available on Amazon too, or you don't know
The
about it?
No, I know that's something they're working on, because they still haven't had a contract with Amazon, but they are working on it, because I mean now is probably the biggest website to buy. So they are trying to make a contract with Amazon as well. So maybe in the future, hopefully, it's gonna be available there as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna add on the description of this podcast a link for the website where people can currently buy the book. And I wanted to ask you, because there will be also a big Italian audience. What is about to cost the book for?
The book is 14 euro.
Okay, it's 14 euro. So I would suggest to the people, they can see the cover image on your accounts,
Yeah.
and they can see also, I guess, also on the website we're gonna share. So
Yeah.
people, you've heard how much work it's behind a book, the whole path of Valentina, from the early years as a young photographer, reporter, hustling around Europe, investing on herself, being brave in living in a country where she couldn't pronounce the name of her street and talk to people. So yeah, I think it's always incredible because nowadays we buy a lot of things, we consume a lot, but we don't know who are the people behind that products and behind that story. And I always say that creatives are a little underestimated because every creative I talk to, you can hear what they do. It's their passion. And a lot of people consider those passions could be a hobby, so they don't see the value, the economical value. But I want always to share the story of the person behind, to see how much work it's behind this one product or behind this one piece of art. I think there is a way of saying that every overnight success is a result of 10 years of hard work.
That's definitely true.
So I'm very glad you accepted my invitation. I think you were definitely one of the most excited guests I had to interview in the preparation of the podcast, which I'm very glad. Before we salute each other, I wanted to give you a little time to tell people where they can find you on social media and what is the website they will find your book.
Yeah, thank you. So people can find me on Instagram as Stories of V, or has Valentina Baruffo on other social media like LinkedIn or Facebook. And they can find my book on the website of the editor, which is Sama Edizioni.
Okay.
And I also would like to say, if anybody is interested in reading it and patient, I would be really, really happy to receive some feedbacks about and to maybe have a chat. So yeah, don't hesitate if you buy the book, then to get in touch and tell me what you think about it.
Great. I suggest you also to buy the book just to support another amazing young artist and to have some time to read a different perspective and thoughts about the quarantine. And last but not least, I always tell in the end of the episode, people, you get this podcast for free. So it would be very kind of you if you could support it just by taking yourself 2 minutes to go on Instagram and type in @TCI Podcast, press follow, go on LinkedIn or Facebook and find the pages The Creative Insider. Or if you're listening on Spotify, podcast, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, just subscribe. And if you like it, share with your friends so that the platform gets bigger and the guest who comes can get a louder voice and more people will be heard. So thank you, Valentina.
Thank you.
And I'll see you soon when you have the book in English so we can tell the international audience where to buy it.
Okay, will do. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
The whole world stops just like that. Just like that.